first of all, Bob, thank you for being on the Bobcast today. I'm so happy that you're here with me and Andres. And so there's a few things that we know about you based on the past 5 minutes, and for knowing you for I've only known you for a couple years. Andres, how long have you known Bob for?
Same, yeah.
I've known of Bob. I started coming to Black Rock when I was a senior in high school, but I probably didn't meet Bob until I was on staff in 2016, 2017. As an intern, you were in Dan McCandless's office, right where the family lounge is.
Right.
But then you left.
Right.
And then I was gone at school.
What do you mean you left? Where'd you go?
Bob, where'd you go?
I stopped getting paid. I kept doing more work for more churches and stopped getting paid. That's actually one of my transitions, is that 2016 move from Black Rock to whatever this is called now.
Yeah.
A lot of work, not getting paid work.
And yeah, so and then later on, I think probably over the past couple years, we've gotten closer. We had a breakfast at some point last year, and
Right.
yeah, it's been super great.
Right.
You're Rachel Donovan's dad.
Right. That's how everybody knows me. You would not believe, really, half my interactions with people is, that's Rachel's dad. That's Rachel's dad. I'm at men's retreat. Guy behind me, Jim McKinney introduces him. This Bob Donovan. Oh, nice to meet you. That's Rachel's dad. Oh, Rachel's dad. Whoa.
I mean, your daughter's pretty epic, but you might be more epic. But
no
we won't
way.
we won't tell that to her.
No way.
So Rachel, if you're listening, which I think she admitted to not listening to the podcast.
Oh yeah,
before.
Bob. Have you ever listened to our Bobcast before? Mm-hmm. You have? Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So I wanted to list the things that I knew about you besides you being Rachel's dad. All right. You love Dunkin' and Red Sox.
Sponsored by Dunkin'.
Dunkin's okay. This is it.
All right.
This is it.
Because you got it for us very generously.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was your love for just New England sports that made you want to buy it. Their marketing is great for that. You love boating, which we just learned about. You're a boater. And you love basketball and sports.
Yeah.
And you love marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Would you want to list anything else, Andres?
Well, he's married to the wonderful Karen Donovan. She is amazing.
Yeah.
What else do I know about Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
That's
full.
it.
That's it. That's it. That's all I got.
That's
all
pretty
I got.
good. So do we want to let Bob introduce himself any more before we get to our first activity for the day?
No, I think we should just jump into the activity, Bob.
So, Bob, something that we do on our Bobcast is that we play this thing called the Sanctuary Bobcast Newlywed Game. Have you ever played the Newlywed Game before?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Where have you played the Newlywed Game before?
I've been doing this a long time. So, a couple of our retreats, we've done Newlywed Game with couples where I facilitated it. I don't participate in it because there's no way I'm going to win.
Well, you're about to participate in it.
We're going to play right now.
Yeah, we're going to play. So we have some whiteboards right here with some nice purple and pink dry erase markers and brand new dry erase erasers.
That's
Is that
right.
what they're called? Dry erasers?
Dry erase marker.
Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you a question.
Yep.
And since your wife's not here, Andres is going to be a stand-in for the day.
So you have to answer them about me, Bob.
Yeah. So I'll ask you a question. Let's say, just for example, favorite musical artist, right? You're going to think about it in your head for you, but you're going to write down Andres' answer. And then we'll have Andres say your favorite music artist is...
How are you going to do that? How in the world are you going to do that?
So
How are you going to do that for me, Bob?
So Andres will
How
say...
are we going to do that for each other?
We're going to find out.
You're going to say it verbally, which is...
Zach Lamine.
And then you are going to show your whiteboard that has obviously also says Zach Lamine, right? Because you know
me so well.
You know him so well. And then Andres will do the same thing for you. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so hide your whiteboard so Andres can't see it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sanctuary Bobcast Newlywed Game. Our participants today are Bob Donovan and Andres Ayala. And the first question is, how do you take your coffee? So, Bob, you're writing the answer down for Andres, and Andres is writing the answer down for Bob, and then you will say it out loud. This one, we have a little background in because we're all obviously drinking coffee.
Right. Well, he turned his around, so I can't see.
You can't
his
read the
answer.
label?
Yeah.
All right. They're both writing a book.
Well, he's lucky. He got my coffee order for Dunks.
All right, so Andres, tell us how you take your coffee.
So I don't want to give him the easy answer. I actually prefer an iced latte with vanilla and honey with oat milk.
All right, let's see what did you write
Okay.
down? Turn it around so we can all
Bob
see it.
has an iced coffee, oat milk, French vanilla swirl.
It's pretty close.
Wow.
That's my Dunkin' order.
Wow, okay.
So
And that's what you got. All
that's
right,
what I
but
got.
Bob,
It's Dunkin' order versus a
like a
Sweetwater?
a
Starbucks?
real coffee shop, you know?
I gotcha.
shout out to Sweetwater.
Shearwater.
Shearwater. we're sponsoring them.
I almost went there. I almost went there.
Nice
all right.
time. All right, Bob. So, what is your coffee order? How do you take your coffee?
Oh, it doesn't have to predict this.
No, you say it out loud, and then he's already predicted it
Okay. All right.
with the magic of
All
television.
right. I got it. I get it 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
A medium hot cappuccino.
He's more of a cappuccino guy.
Oh, facing
no
towards the camera.
way.
Facing towards that camera. Wow, Andres, you're incredible. All right,
you.
all right. Let's do it again. You got the game now. You ready to go another round?
I'm ready.
I want to know how you figured that out. Like,
Bob,
Smart guy.
are you texting Rachel?
No, Bob,
No,
my phone's right here.
We don't do phones in the podcast studio.
Yeah, no phones.
Okay.
Well,
No
phones.
your phone is there, but
Okay, so our second question is, what was your first job out of college?
how am I supposed to know that?
How is Bob supposed to know that? Get down to writing. You gotta. This one is less of a thinker, because you don't really have to think about how you take your coffee. Zach, anything to say about their last answers?
You have a mic, Zach.
You have a mic, so I'm asking you. You purposely did that. Zach Lamine, everybody. You only get to hear his silky, beautiful voice on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. All right, are we ready for the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so who went first last time? Should we switch it up?
Sure.
Okay, so Bob, tell us what your first job out of college was.
My first job out of college was actually collecting money for a finance company
Collecting money for a finance
in
company.
the streets of New Haven and Bridgeport.
That's very specific. Andres, did
Very
you guess this?
That's what I did.
I don't know that I got as specific as Bob.
Let's see it. Turn it around towards the camera.
I have a job in finance where he would go house to house collecting unpaid loans.
Whoa.
Would also hang out in Father Panic Village sometimes, which is also known as PT.
Oh, nice.
All right, this is weird.
Was that it?
This is weird.
I could barely read Andres' writing.
Yeah.
If he wasn't reading it, I have no idea
all
what
right.
that says. Okay, all right. So Andres, does that count as a point?
That's more than a point.
Okay,
That's more
bonus
than a
That's
point.
a million
In fact,
points.
Hey.
I would concede defeat after that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how Andres, how are we going to answer this?
Yeah.
You go. It's your turn.
So first job out of college was a full-time job here doing part-time accounting, part-time college ministry, part-time intern program.
Got it.
What'd you
I
get?
got
Let's
it.
see it. Turn
I nailed
around.
it.
Let's see.
I nailed it.
Let's see. Turn around.
I nailed it.
Coffee guy.
Coffee guy. I thought I said coffee boy.
I mean, technically leaving college.
Hey, so your newlyweds obviously off to a rough start.
I mean, I know Bob. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Bob, does this
Yeah.
happen in newlywed marriages? Like usually
This wouldn't work. No,
one person always knows more about the other person than the other person.
Yeah. Usually it's I'm not going to and stereotype, but that is usually the man is a little clueless into marriage. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I would be the man in this relationship.
Well, thanks, Bob.
All right, we had two more questions. What is your favorite meal? Your favorite meal?
If he gets this, I'm walking out.
Favorite meal.
Favorite meal. Zach, let's talk about our favorite meals while we wait.
I feel like
Zach,
Bob's a.
Tell me your favorite meal while we wait for them to answer their favorite meal.
I like a good shrimp scampi.
Shrimp
Ooh.
scampi? Does that come with, is that pasta? Is that a pasta dish?
Yeah, a lot of garlic.
Ooh.
Yeah,
My favorite meal is lasagna.
just like Garfield.
It's true.
Oh.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, Andres, you're up first.
My favorite food? Favorite meal is a nice ribeye steak, medium rare, with some white rice.
Sounds delicious. Bob, what'd you put? Let's turn it around.
I put.
No.
Oh, for Andre?
Yeah, for Andres.
Ready?
Yeah.
Spin it around.
My wife's Italian sauce. I've never had it.
You would love it if you had it.
Well,
That would be number one.
Yeah,
His wife's Italian sauce and pasta.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I haven't had
I wonder
it.
if that's his answer.
What'd you write?
That's
Oh,
the-
Well, that's what.
Yeah.
all
that's
right,
yours?
what's yours?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Your favorite is your
Yeah,
wife's?
that's it. I switched hats on this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah.
Karen sauce with meatballs. Is that true? How do you feel about meatballs?
he's done.
I'm shot. Like, there's not. If you want to set me up for a successful podcast, you've just failed miserably.
Oh man.
Why is that?
Because so
His
you
competition's
obviously
coming
have
up.
texted my daughter or wife on all these answers and set me up big time.
All right, that's a good guess, but let's just do the last question.
No,
Okay, I
I
you
give up.
come on our podcast and you accuse us,
True.
and I'm trying to do the right thing here and let it go and turn the other cheek and
Amen.
continue the game. Andres, how do you feel?
I feel attacked.
Yeah,
I feel like
I feel attacked.
I just feel like I know so much about Bob, and he knows nothing about me.
You know what? We do have pre-engagement counseling, premarital counseling,
Right.
and just counseling, marriage counseling at Black Rock Church for anybody who wants to go through.
How about bro counseling?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, you're the guy. You're the guy to talk to about that.
All right, last question.
All right, last one.
What is your bedtime routine? When you're getting ready for Betty, what do you do?
That's sweet.
Zach, while they write down, let's talk about our bedtime routines.
You first.
Okay, I'm paranoid about dirtying my sheets with a dirty body, so I shower before bed, and then I also am worried about drying up with age, so I lotion my skin. So I have a nice skincare routine.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And then I go to sleep. Every night, I fall asleep within like less than 2 minutes after I lay down.
How do you sleep?
You know that. That's why you said that. It's messed up. I sleep like a vampire. I cross my arms across my chest and I hold on to my shoulder blades, like my collarbones up here, not my shoulder blades, my collarbones up here. And then I sleep on my side like this.
He's so strange.
All right, we don't have time to hear Zach's bedtime routine. Lucky for
Unfortunate.
him. So let's have Andres, you answer first again. This is our last round. What is your bedtime routine? And we'll see how Bob's answer matches up.
So I usually do a little brush my teeth. I wash my face, and then scroll on TikTok for hours until I fall asleep.
Very Gen Z.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Turn it around. Let's see it.
He watches Netflix, then passes out.
That's close enough. If I had a TV in my room, that would probably be the
would do
case.
that.
Yeah.
So you could do this.
I could.
if you had TV in your room.
I sometimes I will say I will watch Netflix on my phone instead of TikTok.
Okay. All right.
So
like a half a point on this one, possibly.
no,
good.
I'll give you a point, Bob.
Yeah.
We'll be generous at this point.
You're starting to accumulate points. All right, Bob, now you answer, and we'll see how Andres' answer matches up.
Basically, I go to bed, I read a book, and pass out.
Is there anything that happens before then?
Before you pass out?
No. Like before you go to bed.
Oh.
Before you're in bed.
What did my wife say? Let me ask you that. What did she say?
Well, Bob, I can tell you what I know
No,
about
yeah. This is from.
from the Lord.
Turn around, let's see it. Show the camera.
Bob will typically wash his face. He brushes his teeth. He puts on his comfy pants. He watches a little bit of TV. Then he'll get into bed. He'll read a little bit, and then he knocks out.
I have to text my wife. Oh my! Oh my!
Man. Bob, I thought this was going to be fun. Thought we knew stuff about each other. Guess not.
Well, one of us knows way too much. Way too much.
Hey,
Thank you for these 3 questions because they could have been a lot worse.
they could have been.
They could have been a lot
They could have.
worse.
Yeah, they were so not good though that you forgot there were 4 questions.
Fun times. Fun times. Well, Bob, thanks for joining us. Bob, something that we have been talking about as we've kind of been thinking about the Sanctuary podcast and thinking about the community that we're a part of is the fact that between the ages of 18 to 35, which is what our young adult community is kind of geared towards, we face a lot of change. I know I was texting you, you graduate from college, you're trying to find your first job, trying to find someone to marry, possibly get married, kids, maybe a job change somewhere in there, dealing with aging parents. There's just a lot of life change that we endure. And as I have had conversations and Russ has had conversations with young adults, there is this fear of change that we feel like a lot of young adults struggle with. And I was super grateful. You talked to our staff maybe about a month, 2 months ago, about soul care and what it looks like to handle life's changes and the different kind of transitions that we go through in our life. And I thought that it was so good that I really wanted to bring it to our young adults through this podcast. And just kind of wanted to talk about, maybe have you talk a little bit about what that has been like for you, thinking through change and that fear of change that people have.
Yeah, so that's a really complicated and deep question. I know when I presented this to BlackRock, it challenged me like no other presentation, no other talk I've ever given. I've given a lot to men's weekends and couples, but when Gaylord asked me to present this to the staff, and then I spent a lot of time praying and thinking, this just got way deeper and way more complicated because change, as you say, honestly, the examples you gave are the easy ones. Graduating from college, getting your first job, relationships. When you look back, I look back, I'm 72, I've been through a ton. Those are easy.
Wow.
Those are easy. So, when I look back, you mentioned the word change. I know when Gaylord asked me to speak to the staff, I thought more about life transitions, because change could be something pretty simple, right? A job change, right? And I'm telling you, when I look back I had 20 major life events, which people are going to go through. You're going to go through illnesses. You're going to go through parents passing away, friends and all that. Big things. So the stuff, and I'm not minimizing.
Yeah.
I'm not minimizing what you're saying because I also believe in my 20s with the hardest decade of my life because I think you try to put too much pressure on yourself to figure stuff out. And that's what I found. And I've seen that with this generation. People are going to have 4, 5, 6 different jobs by the time they're 40 probably. So the need to figure things out really it's not as critical as you think. So change, I think, is layered, okay? I think whether it's 1 through 10 levels or red, yellow, green level, I think when people think of change, they think too superficially.
Interesting.
I really do. I really think they think those things are 10s and reds, and they're not.
Yeah.
They're 3s and they're yellows. When you really go through life and go through stuff, big stuff, those things pale in comparison. So anyway, it's kind of a long answer to a young person trying to put that pressure on himself or herself to figure things out. That's what I try when I meet with young folks to try to talk to them. They put way too much pressure on. They got to have the right job or the right goal, the right career, maybe the right career possibly, because that's an area maybe. But life, you just have to learn that it's going to come. God's going to present things, and as long as your heart's in the right place. Anyways, I'll kind of just stop there. I just think that what people are faced with, like I look back in 72 years, it's way more deeper and complicated than if I was 25 or 30 trying to figure this out. Yeah. Way more than I expect.
So I know you may feel like you're giving a long answer, but I think it's good because I think that's so different than even I'm heading towards the end of my 20s. I turned 28 in like a week. And those things to me feel like red. Like those things feel like level 10s. What do you think is that distinguishing factor, with wisdom that you've gotten over the years of why are those things really kind of smaller than what we think at this age?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, you kind of in your mind think of what's ahead of you, and you can't possibly imagine what will be ahead of you. So, I mean, those things are, they're here. Like you're looking at a job change, you're looking at relationships. I mean, you're looking at those. So it's just obvious that those things should be 10s to you and should be reds to you, but coming at it from a 72-year-old who's been through, massive career shifts, like going from this collecting money to Sikorsky to Pfizer to a global HR role, leaving that, coming to BlackRock in ministry, like those are big things. Those are big things. So, looking at what you're looking at is completely natural. Yeah, because you don't know. You don't know what lies ahead of you. And I think not you, but I think people in this age group tend to put way too much pressure on themselves. Way too much pressure. Like I don't know why that. Maybe because they haven't been taught to fail and to deal with ambiguity. Maybe I don't know. Like my kids are in their 40s, so I think our parenting is a little different than maybe what you experienced.
Sure.
So that's possibly. I think also each person is unique and different. So like, I'll tell you a big thing is your upbringing. Big thing of impacting how you deal with life is how you were raised and how you were loved or not loved. That's a big thing. I know that this chart that I talked about, which I didn't actually plan to create, but as I thought through this talk, it kind of evolved, and I noticed that a significant factor in my life on how I either successfully or unsuccessfully dealt with change and life transition was my upbringing of what I didn't get that impacted me in how I dealt with some things in an unhealthy way. So I think, I don't know if young people really confront that. I don't know if they really confront that. Because it takes a lot. Like I didn't confront all that until I was older. So, maybe they're not forced to confront their past and how they deal with things, possibly.
Sure.
Yeah. Talking about like upbringing, you just brought to mind something that it's a fear of change that I've had that's come with this specific phase of life. So this isn't for most people in their early 20s or late teens, unless some sort of tragedy has happened. But it's something that people in their 30s have started to see and start to deal with, which is my parents dying, my in-laws dying. So I'm married, and it's a change that I can't stop. There's no way that I'll be able to do anything about this, right? My parents will die, my in-laws will die, but I don't know how to like prepare myself for that change, because there's some change that's within your control, like moving, job change, getting married, relationships, but then this is like changes outside of my control, and I have no idea what to do about it besides feel stressed and anxious. Because like when I think about my dad dying, I'm like, how do people operate without a dad?
Yeah,
right? Because of my relationship with him, whenever I like need something, I just contact him. So it's like, how do I deal with change that I can't do anything about?
Yeah. It's impossible to deal with something like that, because you can imagine life, maybe you can't, but even just trying to land on that, what is life going to look like without my dad or mom, right? Like, there's so much before that. Like, is that going to happen suddenly? Like I lost my parents a day apart unexpectedly.
Wow.
Okay. My wife dealt with 8 years of her mom dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's for 8 long years. So we both have had to deal with that in very different ways. Both are hard. So that actually is more traumatic than dealing with the after effect. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Russ, there's no way you can prepare for that. The only thing I will say is maybe try to reflect on how you handle things like that now. Like when obviously you've lost people, like friends or parents of friends, right? Or grandparents possibly, right? So how have you handled those types of things in the past? Because how you've handled those types of things will likely be a predictor of how you might handle something as big as, an important death, okay? Possibly. I mean, one thing I will say, there's no way you can deal with and prepare yourself for that. There's no way, okay? The only thing you can do is try to be as healthy as you can. And what I mean by that is your ability to kind of self-reflect and identify emotions and express them in a healthy way. Like, if you can figure that out through change and life events, I mean, that's going to help you deal with something like a parent's death. Because if you can get in that practice of dealing with emotions in a healthy way, when you do lose somebody or something that significant, like you call on that, right? And that's one thing I didn't handle because I was an only child. My parents were both alcoholics, and I just I went into lockdown in my room. Like that was my default. Okay, so that when I started going through stuff, especially my parents, when I lost my dad and mom a day apart, man, I went to lockdown. Like I didn't let Karen in. I didn't let anybody in. Like I was like survival mode. I got to sell the house. I got to do this, and I got to take care of the arrangements. And I emotionally, like I closed the vault because I wasn't practicing healthy emotional responses. Okay, so that's what I mean about if you can become healthy emotionally. As best you can, it'll help you deal with tough stuff, okay? The other thing I'd say about that is, so even though I was a Christ follower, okay, and I was rock solid with Jesus, like I was not able to integrate my spiritual maturity with my emotional maturity, okay? So when those things happen, I was good spiritually. Like God carried me through stuff. God carried Karen through stuff, okay? But emotionally, I kind of just shut down. I didn't let God's love and compassion work through me and in me to extend that out in a healthy way. So if you can learn how to integrate your spiritual maturity and health into your emotional health, you can do that with anything, with a relationship, with marriage, right? You can do that now. So I think if you get more accustomed to doing that, identifying what's going on, expressing them in a healthy way, that when things happen and you're used to doing, like training, like you're working out, like it's the exact same thing, only you're training on how to handle emotions, like especially men. Men aren't really bad at that. So, I mean, that's a way to try to prepare as best you can, for something like that.
Bob,
Okay.
I know part of kind of what you had presented to the staff was that as you were working through kind of this soul care lesson for us as a staff, you were reflecting over your life and seeing those patterns of like, hey, when this would happen, this was my response. So it makes sense that, then 30, 40 years later when stuff is going on, those unresolved things that you never fully dealt with were now coming out again.
Right.
You're faced with them.
Right.
How I know you were talking about ways that we can work through that, but even like, do you practically see a difference in your life of, hey, I've started to put these things into practice, and I have a much better kind of emotional response to the different life transitions that are happening even now in your life?
Yeah, very much so. Because when I because of this talk I had to give, I mean, picture having to go back 50 years and look at major transitions. I mean, I had like 20 things. And sad to say, a lot of those, I didn't handle things in a healthy way, okay? Probably up until, now also, like we didn't come to Black Rock till 2000. We became believers in 1979. So from 79 to 2000, I don't think we really grew much spiritually. Okay, so spiritually, I didn't start growing alive in my faith until 2000, which I was, whatever that was in my probably 50. Okay, so that's why it sounds like really weird that most of my life transitions I didn't handle in a healthy way because I didn't really learn my spiritual maturity until I started coming to Black Rock. And then learning, and then really, so I started to grow spiritually. And then probably 2010-ish, I spent a lot of time in the morning journaling and reflecting. And then God started revealing some things to me that I wasn't healthy. Like I hated conflict, hated it. I hated emotions. Like even now, like when I feel emotions, I don't like that. Karen said that yesterday, actually. Something happened, and we were actually talking about dog movies and dogs dying, and I have a soft spot. I can't watch. And she said, "Why don't you watch the dogs?" I said, "I can't watch it because you don't watch because you don't want what's going to happen to you emotionally." I said, "That's right. I don't want that. I don't want to feel that."
Which dog movie was it?
The Dog's Purpose. Don't watch it. It's the worst movie in the history of movies. The Dog's Purpose. This dog like dies like 4 times. They keep like putting it to sleep, and it keeps coming back. And anyway, it's just really hard. Anyway, so my point is that so I just don't like emotion. So those things, and I remember like over the course of like 6 years of reflecting and quiet time and journaling. In fact, I started looking at journals like what I wrote because God wanted me to deal with why do I hate conflict? Why do I stuff emotions? Why do I isolate? And it's somewhat recently, why do I not handle uncertainty well? So even something like this, I was pretty good. Usually I have a million questions. Like coming into something, I have a million questions. I need to know exactly what I'm coming into. It's like, that was like almost paralyzing. And I was like, fairly recently, a couple of years ago, like, God, why do I need to know when I'm going to something, like who's going to be there? You know, like everything, right? And then I just started like praying and the Lord just revealed because of my upbringing and my parents being alcoholics, my mother would kind of yell at my dad a lot. And that was like very unstable and unpredictable. So I grew up in a very unpredictable environment. So I need predictable situations. So that God revealed that to me in my quiet time about like, but I had to like first say, why am I like this? Yeah. Before God started to like work in me. So long answer. I'm sorry about the long answer. But in 2016, great. And so when in 2016, moving from Black Rock to this post Black Rock world, that was a huge change because I stopped getting a paycheck and I started to work on my finances and savings and all day. That was a big change. And I really handled that emotionally. I talked to Karen about that. So she says, yeah, you did better. It's never like perfect, but you did better. Yeah. So I did handle that. We moved from a house we were in for 35 years to Shelton. Massive move, massive change. My kids had a hard time with it. Like it was a huge change. Again, I handled that pretty well. I mean, I felt emotions. I expressed them well. So the last 6-7 years, I've gotten better at like recognizing emotions and handling them the right way. But it took a while to like deal with all that and let God kind of surface some things that I wasn't handling well. And primarily again, it's the emotional health. Because I think at church, we look at, hey, just pray more, right? You're not praying enough, all right? Just actually integrate more worship music. And that's great. You got to do that, right? But when you ignore kind of the emotional side of that, I mean, that's where I got into trouble because I wouldn't handle things on the emotional side. So, yeah, that's why this is kind of a complicated, deep topic.
Yeah. I was curious, you were talking about how you've handled change and conflict and emotion and all that stuff. And through your time counseling people over the years, have you seen a trend of, like, is there a certain way that this, let's say like Gen Z or like just like this younger generation deals with conflict differently, or the fear of change differently than past generations did? Like, what are some like common responses to different stimulus and like fears and stuff?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've seen, I deal with young couples primarily. That's most of my interactions with young couples, and we get into that. We ask them a ton of questions about their upbringing and how that might play out. So that's my context for this answer. Yeah, I think it's hard to isolate patterns because each one is different. But I think that in general, I've seen a trend that like young guys really, again, they put too much pressure on themselves to have all the answers early. And like even with dealing with conflict, I've seen a lot of young men become very passive. And whether it's they don't feel worthy enough to maybe take a lead in their relationship spiritually, I've seen that as a trend, passive young men. And I've seen like highly assertive, driven young women. Like that's, again, I hate generalizing, and I'm not generalizing. I'm just seeing a couple patterns where some young women just are so driven and they kind of just plow through conflict. And guys tend to like just take more of a step backwards and become more passive and let it kind of evolve, which is not the answer.
Is that true? Are those patterns true for the same way they deal with fear of change too? So like a change is coming and it's normal for ladies just to plow through it and just like put their head down, run through it. And guys are more kind of like, oh, this change is coming. And like, I'm just going to kind of make, like, it's going to happen. I'm just going to go like, I don't know.
In general, I think that's true. Yeah, and I don't know why that is. But I think there's some truth to that. I'm kind of, in the context of our pre-marriage program and the assessments they do and the work we do with them. I guess the other point I'd bring out is maybe a reluctance to really go deep and look at how their upbringing might have negative, unhealthy triggers in their relationship. It just I've seen that there seems to be a reluctance to want to do that. Like that's hard. Like that's real. And I don't know, maybe different generations are more apt to do the hard things, but to go inward and look at why I'm not responding to something in a healthy way, it takes work and it's hard. And so possibly young men and women are reluctant to do the hard work of looking inwardly and looking at what do I need to do. That could be a reason. It's, again, I hate to generalize, but that could be something.
There was something on this sheet that you made up that we'll share. We're going to share this with everybody in the description. But I just wanted to read it because it's one of the 2 lessons that you have. And it was really powerful for me to read it, and it has to do with what you just said. So it's your second lesson here. It says, your past does not stay in your past. There are lessons to be learned if we seek to reflect on these lessons with intentionality and trust that God has a purpose for it all. This is the part that hit me like the most right here, this last sentence. It says, and often it is the emotional triggers from your past that surface when you face a season of change or a significant life transition. Can you like expand on that?
Yeah. I think that maybe people spend too much time looking at how they should act when they're in the middle of an event. Okay, how they at that point in time, like whether it's a death of somebody, an illness, a traumatic breakup, a relationship, something like that. When they're in the middle of that, I think people try to look at like, what do we need to do at that point? And I guess by that comment, like if you're trying to figure that out in the middle of that, it kind of is too late. That you need. That's why I'm hoping that this shed some light on this, because you need to kind of get ahead of that, and you need to kind of look at developing emotional healthy habits prior to that. And again, kind of going back to what I just said, that I see a reluctance for people to want to do that. That these emotional triggers from something require you to go and dig deeper. So having to develop healthy habits to understand emotional health is critical before things happen. It's almost impossible. Like, we're in the middle of something. I mean, it's almost impossible to try to figure out it's probably impossible. So even just last week, I had a rough day. I had a friend of mine that shared something massively deep, and that's me. I get pulled. And it may not seem like I got pulled into you, but like on our little whiteboard game. But I am like I'm really into. So, and this guy like shared something really. So this was like a heavy day, and I came home, and Karen just was in a difficult spot, and she wanted to talk about something. I almost couldn't, and that the way I described it to her is that I was almost emotionally paralyzed, because I wasn't able to be available to her at that moment. But at least I recognized it. I was able to talk about it and identify it. And I was able to come back 2 days later and say, here's what was going on in me in that moment. And that's the only reason I was able to do that, because I was developing emotionally healthy habits and quiet time and reflecting and journaling and figuring out these triggers. That's my point, these triggers that come up. So that's one thing I guess I'd say, that if you identify a trigger, just reach out and get help. Like, it doesn't have to be a professional. It could be a mentor. It could be a pastor. It could be, but you gotta, ignoring triggers only make future triggers more severe. They really do. So that's kind of what I was trying to say there.
So Bob, you talked about the diagram that you made and came up with. We have it on the TV screen behind us, and I know we all have it in front of us as well. But I'd love for you to talk more, because a part of what you're talking about is realizing what are the unhealthy responses that we have, right? What are kind of the triggers within that? But then you talk to us a lot about what it looks like to move from having that self-focus to a soul focus.
Yeah.
So really trying to make this practical now for people who are listening who might be like, hey, Bob, I realize that I do have some triggers. I realize that I am going through some stuff. How do I move from being self-focused and having an unhealthy response to that soul focus? Zach, you can keep it up on the screen if you want. No? Oh, okay, cool.
For those of you who couldn't hear Zach because he didn't turn his mic on, he says you can't see it.
But it'll be available in the link. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot for a person to self-reflect. Okay, it takes a lot, and I think that if you're really honest with yourself and you're looking at how do you respond to something, a life event or a change or something, and you're looking at if your default response is to pull back and isolate, not to engage in community, to be judgmental, to be maybe harsh or short with somebody, your response, those types of things, then you're probably letting a trigger impact you in some way. So I think one way would be just to be aware of how you have responded to certain events in the past. If you handle things with, again, I call it just a soul focus versus self. A soul focus is really kind of relying on God to work in you and through you when you're in the middle of something, responding with empathy, reaching out. Like, reaching out is a big thing, especially for men, young men. Like, if you're going through something and you're isolating, that's a trigger right there. So reaching out to healthy people in your community, how you're reacting. Like, if you're hurting so much that it's overriding compassion for someone else, something's not right. Something's not right. That's kind of what happened to me when Karen's dad died in 1986. I loved this man. Like, I really did. I loved him. And when he died, I missed him greatly. But in that moment, I was more focused on my hurt of losing him than I was my wife's hurt of losing her dad. Because I was more self-focused on what I was feeling. I wasn't where I should have been with her. So it's kind of like those things that if you're noticing pop up in you and how you're responding to things in an unhealthy way, to reach out and get help so you can start to look at what God needs to do in you and through you so that you can respond in the right way.
Yeah, that's good. And I know you have on here some, on one of the pieces of paper that we're going to kind of make available to people, different questions that they can kind of work through and ask themselves and just kind of try to figure out, hey, where am I? What am I going through? How am I responding? As kind of maybe like, hey, I'm starting to notice that the check engine light might be turning on. I might need to do some assessing of where I'm at. And I loved these questions. I appreciate that you made them, and they're helpful. And I think everything that you're talking about, it is so helpful for us to know where are we at, how have I handled things in the past, and knowing too that just because we've handled them in the past that way, that with Jesus and with like working through, I know on the soul care life transition model, you have time with Jesus, habits and routine, family of origin, taking a look at all of those things, allowing myself to really assess where am I at, where do I need to bring people in, where do habits need to change, have allowed me to become more soul focused than solely self focused. So I just want to say thank you for this and for putting all the work that you did. And I hope too that as we go forward, and these things are made available for young adults, that there is a willingness to really dive in, to be healthier young adults, so that in the future our kids maybe aren't working through the same things that we were.
This chart was interesting how it evolved. Like in fact, it's funny, preparing for this, I went through my notes again, and I went back to like just some notes I had, and then how this thing came to life. And I didn't go in even planning on making this, but it kind of evolved from just looking at this process and what I went through. And again, that time with Jesus, looking at your habits, looking at your past, like that all together, then again, whether it's, your own hurt and triggers that are dominating your response, or whether it's, walking with Jesus and his compassion, so this was kind of an interesting little trip I took.
I think it's cool looking at the chart too, because this chart isn't just like the model of perfection. Like if you make these choices, then you'll automatically have the soul focus, because the same choices lead to soul focus as they do to self-focus. So time with Jesus can lead to soul focus, but it could also lead to self-focus. Habits and routines, same thing. And family of origin, same thing. Because family of origin, we often correlate with some sort of negative thing. But family of origin could also be because of like the way you were raised, can point you towards Jesus. But I wanted to point to the time with Jesus, how the time with Jesus can still lead to a self-focus. Because I know my default for how I respond to things like conflict, just fears in general, fears of change, is I will martyr myself, and I do it with like a Christian mindset. I'm like, I'm doing this for Jesus. I will martyr myself for the benefit of everybody else. And it's still putting in the time with Jesus, but I'm doing it in a really terrible, negative way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a outstanding point, because looking at the outcome of your time with Jesus, like what is that? Like, is that looking at just being totally self-denial and sacrificial, and or is it being able to like be vulnerable and expressing? You don't have to be married, but expressing emotions and hurt and hard stuff with someone. It's like, that's what. When Lazarus died, Jesus what? Jesus wept. In fact, I literally had this conversation 3 hours ago with somebody that was talking about a pastor he knows, how the pastor kind of doesn't engage emotionally but spiritually on the mark. So time with Jesus should reflect, right, on a vulnerability, authentic emotions. Like if you're married, then it should be like, are you able to be there for your husband or wife? If you're not married and you have somebody important in your life, are you able to be there for that friend on an emotional level? I think the church has, if I can say that, I'm not necessarily BlackRock, the big church have done a really bad job in understanding how spiritual health should inform emotional health. Almost like I think what you're saying, Russ, is the norm. Be sacrificial, be self-denial, and it's to be available and be vulnerable and authentic, right? So, I mean, that's how your time with Jesus should, the outflow of that should be compassion and empathy and love for each other. And yeah, so I think I'm not sure we've done a great, that's why I'm so glad you guys are teeing this up, because I think we've not done a great job trying to explain this to folks.
Yeah. Well, I think something you said too that was interesting, Bob, is also not allowing our own quiet time to be run by us. Something that you said that really started this journey with you was that God almost put a mirror back up to you and said, hey, Bob, there's some things you're not dealing with. That then allowed you to process through, and there was a willingness to be open to God speaking. And I think sometimes we can kind of go into our quiet times or our time with Jesus with an agenda of, okay, God, this is what we're talking about today. Instead of saying, hey, Jesus, what do you want to talk about today? Where are there places in my life that you want to address that maybe don't look like you? And I think that that's so powerful that what he did then in that moment was open a door for you to look in the mirror and say, oh man, there's some things that I haven't dealt with that I need to start working through, which I think is so powerful.
I would tell you what, I would love, and that's something maybe you guys tee up, but like, again, so my experience is limited with this generation, right? It's limited. I don't meet a lot of, but I meet with some. And I've noticed almost like I'll meet Jesus on these terms. Like, because I've talked to a few people about, look, how do you grow? Like, how are you integrating God's presence? How are you meeting Jesus? Like, well, this doesn't work for me and that doesn't work for me, but this works for me. And I appreciate that. But is that informing you of where you need to grow? Like, maybe that's helping you worship better, but I mean, there's only one way to kind of get there, and that's let him work in you. There's only one way. It's not easy. It's not easy. Like when I started to be aware of some of these things, and again, why was I aware of these things? Because I had a wife that was informing me of I need to be better at handling certain things, or you don't have to be married here, but somebody important to you that has some feedback into your life, how you are handling something in a healthy way or not. So when I was getting that, I was like, okay. In the past, I get defensive because guys get defensive, right? So in the past, I would get defensive, but like the older I get, like I just have to figure this out. And I tell you, it's not easy because I start to think of therapists because I was not able to identify and express emotions. I just never learned how to do that as a kid. So I started seeing a therapist on how to help me do that, okay? But there was more, right? There was more. So Deborah Fileta wrote a book called Are You Really Okay? And that book helped me tremendously because almost like going through therapy without a therapist. So, but it's not easy. That's why man, being a Christian and being emotionally healthy is not for the faint of heart. So it took some work and effort to kind of dig and peel back the onion and figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
It took a lot, but it's so worth it coming out the other end. And almost I hate to say it, but you almost it's a pay me now or pay me later kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
With this.
Yeah, I think super quick. And I just want to affirm for, I know you keep saying, if not for Karen, right? But there still is an outlet for single people. As someone who is single, man, the group of friends I have in my life, to be able to call me out when they see unhealthy responses, or when they see hey, you're kind of hitting this pattern again. We've seen this before. And that has taken an openness and a vulnerability with the people around me.
Right.
And even an invitation in to say, hey, I want to give you authority to speak into these things.
That's it.
If you see them. So I just want to make sure we're clear for people who are listening, who are single, who might be like, oh, well, that's really great. Bob just kept talking about his wife, Karen. That no, we can have that within community. I have that with different pastors in my life. And even quite honestly, as much as I hate hearing it from them, my parents who have watched me grow up for the past 28 years have been an awesome source of like, hey, you sound like you're overworking again.
Wow.
You sound like are you stressed right now? Because the way you're responding, which usually my response isn't great. I'm usually like, you don't know what you're talking about, Mom. I'm not stressed. But then when I take some time and reflect, I'm like, actually, no, my mom knows me really well. My dad knows me really well. And they've watched my unhealthy patterns for many years. So I'm grateful for that. But just want to make sure for the single person who's listening who might feel like, well, I don't have a spouse. So how am I supposed to find that out? Find really good friends.
Find somebody in your life.
And
so I would say, I'm glad you brought that up. I tried to cover that, but I'm glad you highlighted that. And I also would say, even a married person for a guy, and I have that. Like I have two guys, maybe three I'd consider. Like I've had the conversation. I've had the conversation about like that specifically outside my wife. So I think, yes, what you're saying, also in marriage, that guys should have go to other guys. Accountability, partner. Like I have not had success with that term, but I have friends in my life that I've given permission to call me out on certain things. And we've been specific about that. So I think that's really critical. Married or unmarried, to have that. And that invitation is critical.
Well, Bob, it's been really great having you. And I can't wait for everybody to listen to this. And I'm happy that you gave us these resources that we could share too. It's really cool. Thanks for taking all the time to prepare this. And before you go, there's a question followed by something. Well, a statement, question, then you'll see. Statement. Something that we normally do on this podcast is we secretly tell people to bring a gift for us that we can leave so that we can always remember you. And so when people walk in and they see all of our weird decorations, they say, oh, what's that there? And then we say, oh, Bob Donovan brought this in when he taught us about fear of change. And then it's like a conversation piece. So we didn't ask you to bring a gift. You brought coffee, but we drank it. And so we decided to provide the gift for you. But before we show you what the gift is, question. Have you ever heard a hip hop radio station's hype air horn before?
I have not.
Zach, could you give us some of that?
Oh.
Is it going?
What do you think about that?
It's quiet.
Why is it so quiet?
I don't know.
Oh, it's muted.
What do you think about that air horn?
It sounds like a basketball game.
Yeah, it does.
Let's jump it up.
Good.
Let's
Hit
jump it
it
up.
like 8 more times. Nice. And then oftentimes on the station they go brrr, like that right after. So now that we're nice and hyped, Andres?
Bob, this is a special gift to us on your behalf that you didn't know you were giving us. And it's a memorable one. And I'm sure you'll remember it when you see it.
No.
It is the Bob Donovan.
Oh, I got to get rid
Snow
of this
globe.
thing. Oh.
A young Bob.
A young Bob Donovan.
In a tank top.
A pink tank top. What year is this from? Do you know? Do you recognize the photo?
I do. That's horrible.
Are you at the beach?
No, that's probably at a pool or something like that. Yeah. I can't believe it.
I love it. So now forever.
I should have taken. I saw it on Brittany's desk, and I know I should have taken it. It's going to come back and haunt me.
How old are you in this shot right here?
I'm going to say early 20s.
Wow.
Good looking guy.
Yeah, and
Karen's
you're
a
going to
lucky
forever
woman.
live
on our shelf.
Oh, it's down here?
Yeah, right behind you.
It's gonna be right
I love
there.
it. It's down here?
Yep, and
Awesome.
it will be featured in every podcast for the
Every
rest
single
of the time.
podcast that we have.
Yep.
It's gonna.
Can I place it someplace?
Yeah, right back there on the shelf.
But can I put it where I want?
No. Sorry, Bob, because you would try to hide it.
Yeah, we want it out.
But I mean, good looking guy.
Any backstory that we should have for this when people ask about it? Like the picture?
Yeah, like Bruce made this for some crazy Christmas grab bag gift, which Yeah,
But he
I
didn't
don't-
make you take the picture.
No, I don't know where that's from. I really don't remember that from.
It's pretty great. I love
It
it.
is.
As soon as I was walking out of Pastor Kevin's office this morning and I saw it and I said, I
you
know
did?
what we're doing.
Oh, that was a last minute thing.
yeah. So,
You're sure you want me to like take care of this?
No, it's
No,
okay.
we want to keep it forever.
Yeah. We like it. Anyways,
Bob, thank you for being on the Bobcast
right.
today.
we love the Bobcast.
Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
we just want to make sure, guys, the more that you subscribe to the podcast, the more people get to see it, get to enjoy it. So we just want to encourage you, like it, comment on it, tell us how much you like the snow globe, but also take advantage of the different things that we're providing specifically for this podcast. I really believe that it will change your life if you dig into some of these questions that Bob has.
And we'll see you Sundays at 5 p.m. at Black Rock Church
That's right.
inside.
Bye.
Bye, Andres. Bye,
Bye,
Bob.
Russ. Bye, Bob.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.